What if I told you that your greatest obstacle isn't your lack of discipline, your lack of opportunity, or even your fear of failure? What if the very thing that makes you extraordinary is the same thing preventing you from ever becoming extraordinary? Look around you. You've probably met someone with undeniable talent, the kind of person everyone says is gifted. They learn faster than everyone else. They have ideas that others never see. They possess abilities that seem almost unfair. And yet, years pass. Nothing happens. Meanwhile, someone far less talented builds the career, creates the business, writes the book, earns the recognition, and lives the life that everyone assumed belonged to the genius. Why? Most people will tell you it's because talent means nothing without discipline. Others will blame luck, connections, or timing. Carl Jung believed they were all looking in the wrong direction. According to Jung, the tragedy of unrealized talent has almost nothing to do with the outside world. The real battle is happening in a place no one else can see, inside the psyche. Because hidden within many gifted people is a terrifying contradiction. One part desperately wants to create, to build, to become everything it was born to be. Another part is terrified of what will happen if it actually succeeds. Not because it fears failure, but because it fears the consequences of proving what it's truly capable of. Jung understood something that most people never realize. An unrealized potential can feel psychologically safer than a realized one. As long as your greatness remains a possibility, it can never be judged. It can never disappoint. It can never reveal its limits. But the moment you act, the fantasy dies and reality begins. So the talented mind develops an invisible prison. It stays almost ready. It keeps preparing, planning, learning, imagining, always standing one step away from its own life. Not because it lacks ability, but because its deepest fear isn't being ordinary. It's discovering what life will demand once it can no longer pretend it never truly tried. In this video, we'll explore Carl Jung's disturbing explanation for why so many brilliant people never fulfill their potential. Why your greatest enemy may be the version of yourself you've never dared to become, and how the shadow of greatness silently sabotages the very future you were born to create. Think about the last time you had a real idea. Not a vague wish, a specific, clear vision of something you could build, write, create, or become. You felt it. The excitement was real. And then, slowly, quietly, nothing happened. You didn't abandon it dramatically. You just kept it close. You thought about it in the shower. You researched it at midnight. You told one person about it, maybe two, but you never moved. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a voice said, "Not yet. I'm not ready. The timing isn't right." Jung had a name for what was actually happening in those moments. He called it identification with potential, a psychological state where the relationship you have with what you could do becomes more satisfying than anything you actually do. And once you see the mechanics, the "not yet" stops sounding like caution. It starts sounding like a trap you built yourself. Potential is the only thing in your life that cannot fail. As long as the novel isn't written, it's still the best novel you'll ever write. As long as the business isn't launched, it still changes everything. As long as you haven't truly tried, you haven't truly lost. The mind understands this perfectly, even when you don't. So it protects potential the same way it protects anything it can't afford to lose, by keeping it locked away from the one thing that could destroy it: reality. Jung drew a hard line between genius and talent that cuts right to the center of this. Genius, he wrote, arrives already whole. It comes through a person with a force that doesn't wait for permission. Talent doesn't work that way. Talent is a capacity, not a compulsion. It needs you to choose it, every day. And that daily choice is exactly where the sabotage lives, quietly, in the gap between intention and action. So here's what this looks like in practice. Tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself, how many things am I currently almost ready to start? Not things you've forgotten about, things you think about regularly, maybe even daily, but haven't touched. Count them. That number isn't a list of future projects. It's a map of exactly how much of your potential your mind has decided is too dangerous to test. The prison isn't built from fear of failing. It's built from the need to stay infinite. And the longer you stay inside it, the harder the next part becomes. Because what Jung discovered is that a gift you keep refusing to use doesn't stay patient forever. It turns, and we'll look at exactly what that looks like in the next part. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. A powerful talent, Jung wrote, is a fateful factor that throws its shadow early before it. Most people read that as a warning about early success. It isn't. It's a warning about the structure of the gift itself, that the shadow doesn't arrive after the talent. It arrives with it, at the same moment, as part of the same package. Jung was precise about this. A gift is almost never distributed evenly across a person. Where it appears in full force, something else goes undeveloped. Emotional maturity, tolerance for criticism, the ability to sustain effort without immediate reward. The gap between a gifted person and their pathological variant, he wrote, is narrow. Uncomfortably narrow. The same intensity that makes someone capable of producing something extraordinary also makes them more vulnerable to the specific fear that keeps them from doing it. You've probably felt this without having a name for it. The areas where you're most capable are often the areas where you're most brittle. Criticism lands harder there. Comparison stings more. The idea of putting your best work in front of people who might dismiss it feels different from risking something you're only moderately attached to. When average people fail, the loss is contained. When talented people fail at the thing they were supposed to be great at, something much more central feels threatened. So the gift and the shadow travel together. The clearer your ability in one area, the more exposed the rest of you feels. And the mind, always working to reduce exposure, develops a solution. Keep the gift protected. Keep it in the realm of potential, where it cannot be judged. Let other parts of you, the procrastinating part, the perpetually preparing part, the part that always finds one more thing to fix before it's ready. Stand guard in front of it. This is not weakness, it's compensation. Jung used that word deliberately. The psyche compensates for what the gift demands by quietly undermining the conditions under which the gift would have to perform. The most talented person in the room often sabotages themselves with a precision that a less capable person couldn't manage, because the sabotage is built from the same intelligence as the gift. Notice what this means practically. The smarter you are, the more sophisticated your avoidance becomes. It doesn't look like avoidance. It looks like research, like preparation, like waiting for the right moment. It produces reasons that are genuinely intelligent, reasons that would convince anyone, including you. The person who spends 6 months perfecting a business plan that never launches isn't being irrational. They're being rational in service of an unconscious goal, to stay close enough to the dream that it still feels real, while staying far enough from execution that it can never be disproven. Jung would say the gift is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's just doing it in the wrong direction. The gifts of the gods, Jung said, have two sides, a bright and a dark. The bright side is obvious. The dark side isn't incompetence. It's the part of you that understands exactly what it would cost to finally be what you are, and has been paying that cost quietly, in the currency of inaction, for years. In the next part, Jung shows us what happens when that inaction runs out of time, when the shadow finally stops waiting to be acknowledged and starts collecting. Jung documented one case that cuts through every comfortable theory about wasted potential and replaces it with something far more unsettling. He was consulted by an American businessman about 45 years old, who had spent his entire adult life building something extraordinary. Starting from nothing, this man had constructed an immense business through what Jung described as incredible intensity and one-sidedness. He was the version of success that looks, from the outside, like proof that talent plus discipline is enough. Then he retired. He had earned it. He bought a large estate, horses, cars, the best of everything. He planned to finally live. Within weeks, he began feeling vague, inexplicable sensations in his body. Within months, he had collapsed into severe hypochondria. A man of uncommon physical strength became, in Jung's words, a peevish child. He fell from one anxiety to the next. His doctor identified the problem immediately. He needed to go back to work. The man agreed, returned to the business, and felt nothing. No interest could be aroused, no resolution brought it back. And then the thing Jung described as his creative genius rose up in revolt. The same capacity that had built organizations in the world now turned inward and built elaborate systems of delusion with equal precision. By the time Jung saw him, the man was, in his assessment, a hopeless moral ruin. What had happened wasn't mysterious, though it looked like madness. This man had developed one side of himself with total commitment and left the rest completely untouched. His gift for building, for intensity, for forward movement, all of it real, all of it impressive. But the energy that drives a person doesn't care about your plans for it. Jung was clear. Psychic energy demands a gradient. It needs somewhere to flow that fits its own conditions, not yours. When you block it, redirect it, or simply stop giving it a legitimate channel, it doesn't disappear. It finds another way through. And the way it chooses is almost always destructive. This is what the last part was pointing toward. The shadow doesn't wait indefinitely. Every year you spend keeping your gift at a safe distance, managing it, protecting it from judgment. The pressure on the other side of that wall increases. The businessman didn't collapse because he stopped working. He collapsed because he had built an entire identity from one single capacity and refused to develop the rest of his humanity alongside it. When the capacity had no more room to run, the rest of him, everything undeveloped, unacknowledged, unlived, came flooding in. You don't have to be a CEO building a corporate empire for this to apply to you. The same dynamic runs at every scale. Every time you pour yourself into the thing you're good at and ignore what it's costing you personally, your relationships, your body, your capacity to simply be still without producing, you are doing exactly what that man did. The only difference is degree and time. The energy of a life insists on fulfillment of its own conditions. You can delay those conditions, you can ignore them. But Jung's evidence suggests you cannot escape them. The question the next part asks is more specific. Why do talented people so often choose the delay? And why does the fear that drives it have almost nothing to do with what they think it does? If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebooks. Beyond the Shadow breaks down Jung's core ideas, while Dialogues with the Unconscious gives you a 30-day path to apply them in your life. Both are linked in the pinned comment. Every story about wasted talent eventually arrives at the same explanation: fear of failure. The person was afraid of not being good enough, so they never tried. It's a neat theory. It's also wrong, or at least, it's wrong about the people this video is actually about. Failing at something you tried is painful, but it carries a hidden comfort. You still don't know your real ceiling. You can attribute the failure to circumstance, timing, lack of preparation. The story of your potential stays intact. The person who genuinely fears failure avoids trying because they can't stand the prospect of a bad result. But the truly talented person who consistently sabotages themselves isn't protecting against a bad result. They're protecting against a good one. Think about what it actually means to succeed at the level your talent suggests you should. not modest success. Real, visible, undeniable success proportional to what you're carrying. The moment that happens, the explanation disappears. You can no longer tell yourself you haven't tried hard enough, haven't had the right opportunity, haven't found the right moment. The gap between what you could be and what you've built closes, and everything you chose not to build while you were waiting is suddenly, permanently, your responsibility. No more runway, no more almost. Jung named this the cost of individuation. Becoming what you actually are, he wrote, demands that you accept responsibility for yourself in a way that most people find intolerable. Nothing is more difficult to bear with than oneself, he noted. And for the talented person, that difficulty is amplified by the size of what's at stake. The more capable you are, the heavier the weight of what you owe yourself. And the heavier that weight, the more understandable it becomes to keep deferring the moment when you have to pick it up. This is where the persona enters. Jung described the persona as the mask a person constructs to navigate the world, the professional identity, the role, the image of competence projected outward. For talented people, the persona often becomes something subtler and more dangerous, the identity of someone who is about to do something great, not someone who has, someone who is about to. That identity is comfortable precisely because it carries all the social benefits of being seen as gifted, the recognition, the expectation, the deference, without requiring the exposure that actual creation demands. The mask of potential is the most seductive mask Jung ever described because it looks exactly like ambition. Here's what it feels like from the inside. You don't experience this as fear. You experience it as standards, as not wanting to put out something that isn't ready, as caring too much about the work to rush it. Those feelings are real. The standards are often genuine, but underneath them, if you're willing to look, there is something else. The knowledge that as long as you haven't fully committed, you haven't fully risked. And the life that's slipping by while you protect that knowledge, that's the actual cost, not failure, not judgment. The loss of the life you were capable of living, traded quietly, year by year, for the safety of remaining possible. There's a version of you that exists only in conversations, the version that describes what you're working on, what you're planning, what you're about to do. That version is articulate, compelling, and full of momentum. The people around you believe in it. In certain moments, you believe in it too. Jung had a name for this. He called it the persona, the mask constructed at the intersection of who you are and what the world expects you to be. The word comes from the Latin term for the masks worn by Roman actors to indicate the role they were playing. Jung's point was that most people never stop performing. The mask stops being something worn and becomes something inhabited, until the person inside it can no longer tell the difference between the role and the self. For talented people, the persona takes a specific and particularly seductive form. It is the identity of someone exceptional who hasn't yet revealed what they're capable of. And this mask is more comfortable than any other, because it generates exactly the treatment that talented people have been receiving since childhood. The deference, the "you could do anything," the quiet expectation from others that something remarkable is coming, without requiring the one thing that would actually confirm it. Output, real, finished, public work. Jung was precise about what this costs. A man cannot get rid of himself in favor of an artificial personality without punishment, he wrote. The mask always extracts a price. The stronger and more convincing the persona, the more violently the interior compensates for it. The person who projects total confidence about their potential often falls apart privately at the first real test of it. The one who talks most fluently about what they're building is frequently the one who returns home and opens nothing. You can feel this contradiction if you're honest about it. The version of you that describes your work to other people and the version that sits alone in front of it are not the same person. One of them has energy, clarity, and narrative. The other one hesitates, second guesses, finds reasons to open a different tab. The persona performs capability. The self has to actually produce it. And the wider the gap between those two, the more exhausting it becomes to maintain both, because maintaining the mask requires energy that could have gone toward the work. Jung described the persona as a compromise between individual and society as to what a man should appear to be. Appear, not be. The persona is not a lie exactly, but it is a substitution. And for someone with real talent, the substitution is especially dangerous because the mask fits so well. You are exceptional. You do have the capacity. The story the persona tells isn't false. It's just permanently incomplete, frozen at the moment before the gift becomes answerable to anything real. The question the next part asks is what it actually takes to close that gap. Not how to be more disciplined, not how to manage your time better. What Jung believed was required at the deepest level to stop performing your potential and start spending it. Jung never promised that realizing your potential would feel like liberation. He was too honest for that. What he promised was something harder and more specific, that the person who keeps refusing the voice of what they're capable of does not get to remain neutral. The refusal has a cost, and the cost compounds. He called it vocation, not in any religious sense, but in the original Latin meaning, to be addressed by a voice, the voice of what you were built to do. Jung's observation was that this voice doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It grows quieter, yes, more muffled, further away. But the silence it leaves behind isn't peace. It's the low, persistent discomfort of a life running parallel to itself. The life you're living, and the life that was always waiting to be lived, moving side by side without ever meeting. This is the thing that no amount of discipline, strategy, or self-improvement addresses. You can optimize your mornings and manage your calendar and build every habit the books recommend, and still feel, at the end of the day, that something essential hasn't moved. Because the obstacle was never logistical. It was never about time or tools or the right conditions. It was about whether you were willing to stop performing your potential and start paying its actual price, which is exposure, accountability, and the permanent end of "I haven't really tried yet" as the available excuse. Jung wrote that when a person can finally say, "As I am, so I act," they become capable of accepting responsibility for themselves, even while struggling against it. That phrase deserves to sit with you for a moment, even while struggling against it. Jung wasn't describing a person who has conquered their fear. He was describing a person who acts in spite of it, who creates while still afraid, who shows the work before it feels ready, because they understand that readiness is not a threshold you cross. It's a story you tell yourself to stay safe. The tension between your gift and the shadow it casts will not resolve. That's not the goal. The goal is to stop letting that tension be the reason nothing gets made. Every day you spend maintaining the persona of someone about to do something great is a day the actual work doesn't exist in the world. And the work not existing in the world is not a neutral absence. Someone who needed it didn't find it. Something that only you could have made stayed unmade. The gap between your potential and your output isn't a private matter. It has a shape in the world. This is what Jung meant when he said, "Vocation acts like a law from which there is no escape." Not that you'll be forced to act, but that the failure to act follows you. The voice gets quieter, but the weight doesn't. And at some point, not dramatically, not all at once, you have to decide whether you're going to keep carrying the weight of what you could have done or start carrying the weight of actually doing it. One of those is heavier, but only one of them builds anything. If this landed the way it should, the video on your screen right now will too. Click to keep watching.